afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of my show called The Democratic View. And I'm the hostess, Phyllis Italiano, and I'm so excited to have my guest here that you caught me talking to her. I want to introduce to you the councilperson from Southampton, our neighboring partners, I guess, on the South Shore.
Absolutely.
And that is Bridget Fleming.
Hi, Phyllis.
How are you?
So glad to be here as always. I'm
Yes.
doing well, thank you.
Good.
Yes.
So we always have a lot to catch up on. I haven't interviewed you, I think, for about maybe 4 months or so. Maybe
It's been a little
more
while.
than that?
Probably 4. I think that's probably
Yeah,
fair.
I think it was in June.
Okay.
So tell us what's going on in Southampton.
Well, we have a lot going on. Of course, the elections are around the corner for everyone, so a lot of people are focused on that. But my term doesn't end until 2016. So I've been, hard at work just pushing for things that are important to me, and a lot of good stuff happening in Southampton. I recently introduced an ethics reform that's interesting because East Hampton sort of led the way on it, or at least East Hampton and Southold have both had this law on the books for many years, and so I'm trying to move it forward in Southampton as well, and it looks like it's going forward.
And it's called Nancy's Law, and what is it about?
It is Nancy's Law, and what this law would do is to prohibit members of, in our case, the big land use boards, the Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, and the Conservation Board. Those are the boards that are really charged with decisions regarding development, building on the wetlands, building according to zoning or not, whether you get a variance or not. Mm-hmm. It would prohibit folks who are on those boards from at the same time being members of political committees or political party officials. So it kind of takes the potential for conflict of interest out of the picture and lets people just make good decisions without any pressure, political pressure, without any sort of, even potential for self-dealing or conflict of interest.
I'm so happy to hear that we have this law.
You've had it since 1995. The thing is, and Southold has it too, and I think what's really, what we East End towns have in common that's so important is, first of all, incredibly high values in our land, right? Our property values are very high, so there are all kinds of economic pressures on us with regard to that, and certainly with regard to development. And our environment is so very important to us. Our environment is our economy, at the basis of our economy, but it's also our quality of life. It's who we are. It's what makes us a special place.
Well, now you're quoting Tim Bishop, because Tim Bishop is the one who first said it here with me. I don't know, maybe he said it before, but he said the economy is the environment, and the environment is the economy.
So true.
You
So
cannot
true.
have people wanting to come here without clean water to swim in,
That's right.
beautiful beaches, and open vistas.
Absolutely.
And that's my Bible.
No,
I
it's so
think,
true.
well, that's the smartest thing I've heard in a long time.
I would add to that working farms. And
Yes.
you may just say the vistas, part of our vista are those beautiful working farms that roll all the way down to the ocean. It's a topography that you don't see anywhere else. And that and the farm stands are why people spend millions and millions of dollars here every summer, and certainly in the shoulder season, as they say also.
So that's the battle. The battle is to keep that
Right.
and put. I don't want to say stop development, but keep development in balance.
Imbalance. That's a great way of putting it, Phyllis. Imbalance. And, we also need to just ensure that our laws, our zoning laws, and our building codes are applied in an even-handed way. And that you don't have any kind of suspicion that anybody on the inside is getting special treatment, or that you're going to see some kind of development that is against our comprehensive plan, against our long-term planning, against what environmentalists think is important, for the health of our waters. As you know, our waterways are now impaired. The DEC has declared Western Shinnecock Bay impaired. We have I'm from Sag Harbor, as you know, and our harbor has been closed twice in very recent history, May, and then also very recently closed to shell fishing because of alga blooms that come from overloading of nitrogen, and that's the sort of thing that we got to keep an eye on. We've got to focus on mitigating and remediating, and open space is one of the best ways to do that.
Absolutely.
So especially, for instance, in the watersheds and anywhere that private wells will be impacted, the best way to make sure that the septic load isn't more than the healthy waters can bear is to curtail development there. And our laws are in place to do that. We also need to make sure, though, that those laws are even-handedly implemented. So that's what the law is intended to do, and we're going forward with it. We're going forward with a public hearing on it after the election, November the 12th. We'll have a public hearing, and we'll see where we go from there. We had a 4-to-1 vote to go to the public hearing. At first, the whole thing was defeated, and we weren't even going to have a public hearing. But I have to say, some of the members of the current town board are professional, and it's, we work across the aisle. We serve as a model for other governmental, not to be named.
Across the aisle? My goodness gracious,
Yeah.
that is a strange concept
Yes,
these
no,
days.
I have to give credit to my Republican and conservative colleagues who agreed to have a hearing on this to go forward. Because on our land use boards, there are 7 members on each of those 3 big boards. So it's 21 people altogether. And of those 21, 11 are members of either the Republican or conservative committee. The Zoning Board of Appeals,
my
no,
God.
it's true. So the Zoning Board of Appeals is 7 members, 5 of them are members of the Republican committee, and 1 is a member of the conservative committee. And I think it's really important to note that, none of these folks are, terrible individuals. They're all giving their time and energy to the best interests of the town, but it's just a systematic flaw that you all addressed back in 1995 and Southold addressed years ago. It's just when you answer to 2 masters, it makes it more difficult to make clean decisions.
Well, we had a guy, John Whelan, who was a committee person, who went on to do some work for the county. He resigned being a committee person.
Well, and
because
that's all that it would take. Folks think, and John's a good man. That was, you would expect that sort of, those sort of steps
ethics,
to be taken.
it's called.
And ethical, right. But the thing is, though, I want to really make it clear that if this is the way the system is set up, it asks a lot of any individual person to say, well, I'm going to do something different from what all my other colleagues are doing and not wear those 2 hats. So it's just much easier. We did the same thing with the police department. Some time ago, our police department had some challenges, and one of the things that came to the surface with some scrutiny in the police department that we didn't have in the past before I was on the town board. One of the things that came to the surface was that there was no prohibition from being a political committee member and also being a police officer. And police officers have such discretion with regard to, folks' liberty.
Holy mackerel.
So we were very successful in passing that. That was a 4-0 vote. And so now our members of our police department, our sworn police officers, cannot serve also as political committee members. And then I'll tell you, when I was doing the research on that, because I sponsored that legislation, I did a Freedom of Information request to find out who the members of these various committees were to see what impact it would have on the police department. I wanted to know what my law was going to, the impact of it. And I discovered this 5 out of 7, 6 out of 7, 3 on the planning board, 2 on the conservation board. And without casting aspersions on any of those individuals, a majority of the members and we have $65 billion of real estate in the town of Southampton. This is very real. And so you got to just take that out. Free people up to do their one job, make their decisions well, and not even worry about potential impropriety or undue influence.
That's a lot of money you have there in
Yes, we
Southampton.
do indeed.
60
Well, I mean, East Hampton is a very
Far
has the
behind,
same-
yes.
well, you're much smaller geographically. We're
Yes.
140 square miles. We're 350 miles of coastline. So there's a lot of ocean front. There's a lot of, we have
Yes, of course
a
I do.
very we're very blessed in the town of Southampton. But we need to just make sure that decisions are made in a very even-handed way. And as the inventory of open space and agricultural land shrinks, it is more and more important to keep an eye on things, to make sure decisions are made well, and to preserve what we have so that we don't see our economy, as you pointed out, degraded, or our way of life. I was just driving on Millstone Road today. I had a beautiful piano music on, and I felt, Phyllis, like I was in a movie.
I know.
The beauty of our East End is unsurpassed.
I know.
And we are charged with protecting it and being proper stewards of it, and that's sort of what this legislation is aimed at.
And it really is up to us to do it. I mean, I call it keeping Nassau County at bay. I mean, I just don't want to
Yeah.
become that.
Well,
Because
that's a good point.
if we do become that, I will have to leave, even though I love my bay, and I swim in it all the time until it gets just too cold.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to see that kind of change that happens and creeps,
Yeah.
along, and before you know it, you've got, one unsightly thing after another.
Yeah, we're very fortunate too because we have the Community Preservation Fund, which is unique to our 5 towns, and that was designed to allow us to keep open space without burdening the taxpayers, to keep agricultural land without burdening the taxpayers, and that's what I think we're charged to do, and I think we're doing a very good job, but it takes constant vigilance.
Yes. Well, I think East Hampton needs to get on the stick about doing a better job, because we have too much money in our CPF fund that has not been spent in the last few years.
That's interesting, because we actually 2 years ago we passed a bond resolution to authorize the issuance of $30 million in additional spending for the CPF, because CPF is so reliable, even in economic downturns. Like East Hampton, Southampton has cash on hand to spend. And I actually went to a CPF advisory board meeting not long ago to say to them, why is this money not yet spent? Why are there parcels that have not been purchased? And why are we moving at the pace we are? Although we're doing very, very well. Hundreds and hundreds of acres of open space have been purchased, but we could do better. So actually one of the things that I recently recommended is that we trim down some of the red tape, some of the bureaucracy with regard to the process of approving parcels for acquisition, with a focus on agricultural lands and with a focus on our water quality. So for instance, the proposal is if a parcel is within a 0 to 2 year watershed range, so that, for instance, groundwater in that parcel would reach our surface waters
Right.
within 0 to 2 years, then there's a step where the town board has to advise the CPF director whether or not she can order an appraisal. That step could be removed. It takes about 6 weeks out of the process, and it makes it more likely to, that we get to the real decision making, which is what is the fair market value, and do we want to spend those funds in order to take that parcel into town ownership and protect that water that's moving through the watershed into the bays.
Well, also, one of the things that they're talking about now in East Hampton is, we have the Springs, which is a very crowded area.
Right.
All the houses are on half acres, and it's mostly, some of them are on quarter acres.
Right.
And it's been quite developed, and of course, our groundwater is extremely important to all of us. and where they're talking about the CPF fund, which I think they did once before. They had a program called Small Lots, which they bought up very small areas just to keep them from being developed. Matter of fact, I have one right next door to me. I always say I love it, except that the leaves that I get from that, are really amazing.
Better leaves than septic, Phyllis.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, so they're going to be, hopefully, when the administration changes in January, hopefully we can go ahead with a little bit more of that, buying up small parcels and perhaps, even making some of them garden areas or small park type of things.
That's so critically important too,
Yes.
because we have Hampton Bays has a lot of those areas, Flanders, where I live in Noyac, and we're right on the water. You have those little quarter-acre parcels, and you have houses on them that were built in the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah.
And the septic, we've got to do a much better job of educating people as to what their septic is. Where is your septic? Just ask people, where is your septic? Some folks don't even know. And not to blame them, it's just we haven't done a good enough job of letting people know that you've got to pay attention to what's going into the water, because what's going into the ground. Because what's going into the ground, especially where we live, is very quickly going to make its way into the bay. And that's, that there are impairments now that I mentioned before, shutting down our fisheries, our fin fisheries. I have a friend who's a fin fisher in Noyac Bay and the Peconic Bay, who lost 3,000 pounds of bunker in the last, it was maybe now I would say a month ago, that we had the last brown tide over by Jessop's Neck. He checked his northernmost trap in the morning, then he went to his southernmost trap. When he went back to the northern trap, all the fish were dead. All his bait fish were dead. And it wasn't the toxins, it wasn't because it was toxin, it just clogged their gills. They couldn't breathe because they're in the nets, and they couldn't breathe. So this is a very real impact on our marine fishing, our marine industries, our fin fish, our shellfish, and we've got to be serious about it. We've got to attack it from every angle. We need the help of the state. We need the federal government's help. And I believe it's on people's radars at this point, but we've got to, municipal government, state government, federal government, we've got to work together and really attack this issue and take it seriously.
We are having a study done in East Hampton. It's called a Comprehensive Wastewater Management Study,
yes.
With a guy named Pio Lombardi, Dr. Pio Lombardi,
Yep.
who is going to be, who is conducting this study. And we hope that he is going to have some results probably around January for us.
That's great.
And then we know that there are going to be areas where we're going to have to talk about people changing their septic system, because some
Yep.
of them are not septic systems, they're cesspools,
They're mostly cesspools.
Yeah.
We don't have much sewers in Suffolk County. 70% of Suffolk County is sewered, and is unsewered, and it's even higher than that where we are. It's close to 90% on the east end.
Well, because it would be, a phenomenal cost to try to sewer out here because of the expanse of land.
Right.
But there certainly are other things that we can do, and, we're hoping that we're going to be able to come up with some solutions.
I think there's a three-prong approach you have to take, and I was recently up in Islip. Pio Lombardi has a nitrix system,
I know that system.
Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it, but I know about it, and I
It
know
works on bugs. A little creepy, but that's, the little bugs are what are eating the septic that take the nitrogen out. It goes, through a field, and then it goes into these pools. In the field, you have aerobic bugs, so they're bugs that work with oxygen to break down the effluent, and then they go into these wells, and they're anaerobic bugs. I don't know, Phyllis, why anaerobic bugs give me the creeps more than aerobic bugs, but they're bugs that work without oxygen.
I know.
And continue to break
I know
it down
what
and break it
anaerobic
down.
means,
So,
yes.
But I think we have three, in my view, I think it would make sense to look at it from a three-prong approach with regard to the cesspools and the small lots and the folks who are just ordinary people who don't have a lot of money but do have to, we need to rely on them to help us get some of this nitrogen out of the water. One is inspections. We've got to educate folks and then maybe even assist them with inspections, $100 to $150 depending on if they have to look and find where your septic is. But have somebody out, have somebody look at your septic system, let you know whether it's working correctly, whether it needs to be upgraded or maintained in a different way. So that's number one. Number two is maintenance. Pump your systems. They can't be pumped too frequently. That's not helpful either. But know how often your particular system should be pumped and do it, and that's something maybe we can either get the state to help us with, or I'm looking to fund. We have a clean water fund that was actually created under the sponsorship of one of my Republican colleagues, Christine Scalera. Now we need to fund it. Now we need to make a commitment that's a real commitment, because you have the inspection, you have the maintenance, and then the third prong, I think, is looking into these systems like the nitric system. There's the BEST system. DEC has now approved, I shouldn't say DEC, the county health department has approved a number of these, what they call advanced treatment units, ATUs, that not only clean the effluent, but also remove the nitrogen. And so we need to assist people in implementing some of these systems and seeing them getting a foot in the door, starting using these systems out here and see how they work, get them working well, and start removing some of that nitrogen. So I think all of us can partner. We need a regional approach. But if we look at it in those three terms, considering that we don't have the means to sewer or to do anything large, but we do have to help our residents. We have to help the ordinary people.
Absolutely.
Who just, and everybody wants to. If we get the education, I've just begun discussions with Surfrider and Ocean Rescue. You got a lot more of these groups that do the swimming out here in East Hampton, but these folks are willing and able to get the word out. So if we can start educating people through the groups who use the waters recreationally, through the surfing groups, through surf shops, through our fishermen, through the folks who are out on the water, just get the word to people who are homeowners that we've got to start looking at this septic issue. People are willing to do it. They want to do it. Whether they have the means is another thing.
I want to do it. I'm just waiting for the results of the comprehensive wastewater thing, and I'm ready to do it. I would like if there would be some kind of assistance, even if it's just a tax break.
We had a rebate system, but it was only funded with $50,000. It lasted less than 2 weeks because people do want to do it.
That's nothing.
I know, but it's a good start, and I do think that we have an opportunity in our budget to fund it, and I believe it will be funded. I think I'm not the only one who thinks that way.
We had when we had the thing with the oil tanks. If you took the oil tank from the bottom and put it out somewhere where it wasn't underground, and closed that up, and foamed it is what you had to do.
Right.
And you got a tax rebate from East Hampton town.
Yep.
So I think there has to be some kind of steps like that that are going to, because portable water to drink and water in our bays and in our ocean.
Yep.
That is one of the crisis issues that are facing us.
No question about
out
it.
here. I mean, that is really key. Right. And of course, you know about the shore. Of course, we have it too, as well as you. Terrific damage from Sandy, and Sandy ain't going to be the last one.
No, we got to keep our eye on that as well. No question about it.
Because I know that your town is already beginning to do some things about. I hope you're also encouraging people to move back.
Well, what's most recently happened in the town of Southampton is the creation of these 2 erosion control districts. Well, actually, we have 3 now, but most recently Sagaponack and Bridgehampton, which is fortunate because of the damage that happened with Sandy. Those 140 homeowners agreed to tax themselves in order to create, I think, an addition, along a 6-mile stretch, additional dunes and beachfront. They're dredging from the ocean and going to bring it up, and the homeowners taxed themselves to do that. So that is a great move forward. And I know everybody's watching East Hampton and your studies with regard to hardened structures and the damage that they do, and so the eyes are on that, and you're right, it's not the last storm, so we've got to be prepared.
Yes, indeed, and we are working on it, although we have not yet reached consensus on exactly which way we're going on.
Well, I suspect you'll have different consensus building once the new year comes.
Once January 2nd comes? Yes, indeed, I'm hoping. I was just thinking as you were talking about how knowledgeable you are, and I'm thinking, my goodness, it must be awfully hard to be a council person. You must have to work very hard.
It is hard, I have to tell you, it really is hard, but it's enjoyable. I mean, I think you need to have a certain kind of personality to be in politics at all, but to be a local politician or a local town official, I guess you should say, is challenging because there are so many hurdles for everything you do, and everything is right up close. You know the folks who are being impacted, and they know you. So you gotta just really take the victories for what they are and understand you can't solve every problem, but listen to folks and do your very best. And
well, we know that you are doing that, and also you have a family as well to take care of. So, well, good luck and continue on to work hard because it's very important.
Well, I really appreciate you. It's always so nice to be here, and you're so gracious. Thank you, Phyllis.